Hello, welcome to The Stupid Show, episode 7, on what was supposed to be the last day of COP15 here in Copenhagen, but clearly isn't, for reasons we shall be hearing about very soon. One of the main characteristics of this conference now is that people are asleep everywhere. Wherever you turn, there's people in the corners lying asleep. Apparently Ed Miliband, the UK Climate Change Minister, hasn't slept since Wednesday, which is rather impressive, but of course not at all equivalent to the 300,000 people who are already losing their lives every year because of climate change. But it is a good thing that they're all working hard trying to get a deal. So the big news is that Obama is here, and he will be coming on live to The Stupid Show. Yes, sure he will. He made a big speech earlier, which everybody's pretty disappointed about, frankly. Let me tell you what all the world leaders are saying, because obviously none of them are going to come and speak to us. But by the power of a magic piece of paper, I'm going to read them to you. Sarkozy said, French, "If we carry on like this, it will be a failure. We're not here to convene a conference on global warming. We are here to make decisions." Gordon Brown said, UK, said, "In these few days in Copenhagen, which will be blessed or blamed for generations to come, we cannot permit the politics of narrow self-interest to prevent a policy for human survival." The Chinese ambassador said, "Copenhagen is too important to fail." The Indian Environment Minister said, "I think there has been an absence of trust, and I think the blame game has begun." Chavez, who's always you could always rely on him for a great quote, said, "If the climate was a big capitalist bank, you would have already saved it, you rich governments." The Greek Prime Minister said, "We cannot let down the world, we cannot let down our children, we're here, and we are responsible for the future of the world." The South Korean President said, "Instead of saying you first, we should start by saying me first." And the Australian President, I like this one best, partly because of their 5% cuts, he said, "I fear that at this conference we are at the verge of letting down all of the little children of the world." That is beautiful and touching. So, if you want to contribute to The Stupid Show today, you can by emailing, texting, typing, all of those modern forms of communication. So, I'm back now with the terrible twins who just couldn't keep away. We had them on here tomorrow. You've been hanging around all day, you two, haven't you? Tony Juniper, Tom York, thanks very much for coming back. So, Tony, it was the signing ceremony, 4 p.m. today, wasn't it?
Yes.
When the world leaders came to Copenhagen to sign the new Copenhagen Agreement. How did it go?
Yes, so December the 18th, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the signing ceremony of the new climate change treaty, only not December the 19th this year, December the 18th this year. They got that wrong, so they're still negotiating.
Do you think it's going to be 2010 now, or is it 2011? 2049, I think that would be a good time for a new climate agreement.
Well, that's the implication of the 2050 target, isn't it? Is that we can leave it until much, much later before we have to do anything. And, you know, that's the kind of temptation politically, is to put off the action that's necessary long into the future. So they're still talking here. There's been bad-tempered negotiations going on. We've heard that some of the world leaders have been shouting at each other behind closed doors about some of the issues that are not resolved here yet. It's coming down to, you know, whether the Kyoto Protocol will be there, i.e., you know, legally binding cuts for the rich countries. That's one big sticking point. The Americans don't want that, obviously. Some of the big developing countries are reacting badly to the calls from some of the rich countries for them to have legally binding cuts. There's the whole issue of money. I mean, you know, all this was so predictable. You know, I think the world leaders who turned up today, they really should be taking some responsibility for this, because in the end it was down to the negotiating mandates they gave their teams who've been talking for the last 2 years, you know, in terms of money, commitments and everything else, and then they're turning up at the last hour, literally, and trying to sort it out. It's pretty irresponsible, actually. They really should know better.
Are we any further on?
What kind of a world leader is that? It doesn't lead.
Are we any further on than 2 weeks ago, or even 2 years ago?
Well, some of the stuff that being circulated this afternoon, some of the draft texts for this so-called...
Drafts? We're still on draft.
Oh, we're still on drafts. For this draft political declaration, because they don't have a treaty, and so they're trying to come up with something that can be the basis of future action, and it's really weak. Yeah. You know, we're not even beyond the idea of you know, 2 degrees and 2020 targets with, you know, numbers behind them that reflect the science. So it's not a good situation from that point of view. However, it's not over, you know, so whatever happens here this afternoon, it will have to continue.
Yeah.
Just a shame that this great opportunity has been squandered, I think you could say.
But not completely squandered. What is actually going to happen? Are we going to go all through the night? Or?
Oh, I think, well, we had a little sweepstake, a few of us. We were sitting in the pub and we...
Sitting in the pub?
Sitting in the pub. Well, we did have we're 5 minutes. We did have a 5 minute break.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. We got press badges. We have to sit in the pub. So we had a little sweepstake, and my guess was 12:20 lunchtime tomorrow is when the final gavel will come down.
You heard it here first. How about you, Tom? Had a nice day? What have you been up to?
I've had a great day. Yeah. Thoroughly inspiring in every way. I'm so glad that I came and saw the utter fog. It's just fog.
Yeah.
Nothing in the fog, just fog.
Did you watch Obama's speech? What did you think of it?
Yeah, we were pretty appalled. Yeah, well, it was fog, and it was. He was obviously angry and agitated, and agitated he really should be, given what's going on here. But the thing that was remarkable about that is that he brought the negotiating position of the Americans months ago.
Yeah.
He just repeated things they've been saying for ages and ages, and like a lot of the countries did that this morning in those high-level segments. I mean, what is the point of having world leaders here if they're just going to come and read out the press release they issued months ago?
But also, what's the point of these poor negotiators for the last 2 weeks trying to battle through if the world leaders then stick to something months ago?
For the last 2 years, you know, this. Don't forget, this process started in Bali with the Bali roadmap leading to Copenhagen, and then of course there's 15 years worth of work before that, leading up to Bali with the Kyoto Protocol and everything else before. So you know, history will judge these people harshly, I think, if they don't pull the iron out of the fire tonight and come up with something, at least a decent short-term process to finish this off.
I mean, it's not as though the world has never come together to fix an environmental problem, is it? I mean, the famous one is the Montreal Protocol, of course. You were probably there yourself.
I wasn't involved in those particular negotiations. I was working at Friends of the Earth while some of it was still going on.
And essentially came together, agree, no more CFCs, fix the ozone layer. Why could they fix the ozone layer, but not climate change?
So the Montreal protocols on phasing out substances that deplete the ozone layer, there's several things that are different to this process. Now, thing number one is that it's a relatively small number of chemicals, CFCs and methyl bromide and all this kind of thing, and you can phase them out with technology. You haven't got to change people's lifestyles, and you haven't got to change the fundamentals of the economy. Whereas with CO2, it's transport, it's energy, it's lifestyle, it's agriculture, it's deforestation, it's everything. And so it's a much, much bigger agenda, this one here. They managed to fix the funding quite early on. So they had the multilateral fund for the Montreal Protocol that helped China and other countries pay for the phase out of CSVs. That was helpful. There's another thing, though, however, which I think is a bit harsh to say, but I think it's probably true, is that the ozone threat was one to mainly rich white people, whereas the climate change threat is principally, first and foremost, to poor, not white people. And I think that actually said a lot about why the politics work quite quickly.
I can't help feeling like that they're all, you know, there are exceptions. There's Sarkozy, like, and Gordon Brown, and but I can't help feeling that they're all coming here kind of like expecting to do some sort of weird business as usual thing. Like somehow, like you're talking about the economic model, somehow, oh well, you know, we can just somehow pass this around. I don't know. And that, to me, that's the bit that's really shocked and alarmed me. I kind of expected them to be coming here saying, okay, this is the science, this is what we've got to do, how are we going to do it? They're not even doing that. I mean, but what makes it even more disgusting is you know, when I walked in this afternoon, everyone's got their like 5 minutes, except for a few exceptions like Chavez. You know, they're all just talking the same old shit, man. And it's like, well, I could do that. Any of us could do that.
We're good at sitting around talking shit, in fact. We're proving it right now.
In fact, maybe we should apply for a job.
Yeah, well,
what, world leaders?
Yeah, world leader.
If they'd asked us to stand
I want a
up,
nice
we'd
one.
have done a good job.
Let's bring in Danilo. Danilo. Let's hear what's happening with Forest. Give us some good news. Take the chair.
Good news.
What's happening with Forest? Got a deal?
Well, the forest, almost nothing. Only the fact that in the draft of the new agreement there is a paragraph where the inclusion of the red mechanism is explicitly